but still in urban areas. So, Roger, thank you very much.
Doing things, yeah?
There you go.
Okay, thanks. So, maybe we should say sublime to the ridiculous, I'm not sure. This is a pilot study, and it's a pilot study in the sense that I came to this field rather recently after having done other work associated with climate measurements. And so I'd like to say a few things about that as I move along. This is work that I've done with Huade with Flinders University and his group, who are doing a lot of very fine work. We have Xanthia Gleason here, over there, and Zeshan Shan and Wenjin Yang, who are much more experts than I am in this field, and you should talk to them. Xanthia had a really nice poster yesterday, and Wenjing had a really nice talk on Monday, so they're sitting over there. Please grab them and they'll tell you the real truth about what we've been doing. This has been supported by local government, and it's been supported by local government because they want to know whether their investment in maintaining trees is well spent. And so the essence of this is to say that in Adelaide, which is a Mediterranean, fairly dry climate, how do we keep trees healthy through our long, hot, dry summers? So the essence of this is testing really how trees survive and testing a particular mechanism that the local council are using to help that to work. I've been at this conference for 2 days, and I do have a background in other things, so I'd like to make 4 points, just very quickly, which is not relevant to my talk. But first of all, I did a lot of work with vineyards. Vineyards have a problem. Vineyards have a problem with, particularly in southern areas, in the southern hemisphere, in other words, colder areas, they have a problem with late frosts. And one solution for that is to fly helicopters night after night after night, which is a bit expensive. An alternative solution that we came up with, which is fairly obvious, is to change the nature of the surface of the vineyards by putting fairly solid materials there, rocks and the like, which retain heat from the clear days prior to frosty nights, and then allow that to come out at night and reduce the frost risk. So one thing that's important that I haven't seen in the modelling is a lot of concentration on the surface of the cities, and I know we've got asphalt and things, but it's very, very important. The second thing I'd like to say is that I did a lot of work on green roofs, and one of the things that we found with green roofs is that water is incredibly important. You can control the flow of heat through a substrate to the roof itself very well by water, which is a good conductor. Or if you want water to go, if you want to get heat into the building, put a lot of water in. If you want to keep heat out, you reduce the amount of water. So water is important, and I haven't seen a lot of that in the surface modelling as well. So put that in. My main introduction to this work was atmospheric water vapor, and as we heard about Chicago, it isn't just temperature that's important, it's the amount of water vapor in the atmosphere that's important. And that water vapor is what allows your cities to cool through the sky view factor, and that needs to be incorporated in the sky view factor through the integrated precipitable water vapor. I haven't seen that very much in the models. And the other thing that's relevant to what I'm going to talk about in the next 2 or 3 minutes before my time runs out is so integrated water vapor is important, but also local water vapor in terms of relative humidity is important. You don't get evapotranspiration if you've got 100% humidity. It just doesn't work. So there are places where evapotranspiration is incredibly important, like Adelaide, where I come from, but other places, such as various places in Japan where I was 2 or 3 weeks ago, it doesn't work at all. So what I'm going to show you is a technique that doesn't work in Japan, but works incredibly well, surprisingly, in Adelaide. Okay. So we're looking at suburbs that want to cool. Trees are really good, but we've got to keep the trees healthy. There's a technique that's used in Adelaide, and I'm not sure if it's used elsewhere, which takes stormwater and retains stormwater underneath the sidewalk so that it's available for tree roots, and that's a way of keeping trees healthy. And so the point of the work that I've been doing and the work that Xanthia's been doing with this wonderful poster that she had yesterday is to look at trees and to say how healthy are they with or without this tree net mechanism for saving water. Okay, and that's just a very quick picture of it. You stick a sump underneath the sidewalk which retains stormwater for a certain amount of time, and that makes that available to the roots, which is a really good thing for maintaining tree health, so as we believe. So I'm new to this. It's a pilot study. I haven't got very far with it. Xanthia's got further with her related study. So let me just remind you that trees are really good. So here's on the left is an infrared image of, and it's not very effective, so let me point out to it. So here we've got a street, and we've got trees over the street, nice and cool. We've got other bits that are nice and cool. Got to be careful with infrared photos there and up on the right there. Those are buildings with steel roofs, which is very popular in Australia. Steel roofs give you a very confusing infrared image because they just reflect the cold sky. So what you're seeing there is the cold sky. Typical sky temperature, minus 30, minus 40 degrees, and so they're just reflecting that. Yeah, I should say, I've done a lot of work on how that works, but forget it. Okay, so trees are really good, but also you'd like to know something about what they do that's really good, thanks. And one of the things they really do good that's really good is to give you shade. So I did a little experiment. I produced a little surface that would have thermal properties a bit like my skin, and I measured that how hot that got compared to the shade temperature. And here we've got a time of day across the bottom, just to calibrate me, and this is just after the equinox, southern equinox, our autumnal equinox, early April, and you can see that at that time of year we're getting a 20-degree difference. I've seen different versions of that over the meeting, some as high as 40 degrees. So shade is a crucial thing. It's a really important thing that trees give you. Okay. But the other thing that trees give you related to shade is the sky view factor. And here we've got the effective sky view factor, including the effect of precipitable water vapor, I should emphasize, and the urban heat island intensity out there. And what you can see is that as the sky view factor increases, as you see more and more sky, you get less and less sky view factor. You get less and less urban heat island. Okay. So ventilation is important. So you've got to be careful with trees because they inhibit ventilation, particularly in places like Adelaide. And I'm guessing Chicago. I meant to ask you that, whether you actually get a sea breeze from Lake Michigan. Okay, sea breeze is very important. It goes around 8 kilometres in for Adelaide. That can be inhibited by trees, so you've got to be, so there's a downside. The other thing that's important, and I'm sorry you can't see this, on the left-hand side is measurements that I made of the magnitude of the urban heat island in Adelaide and versus wind speed. And on Monday, people were talking about 1 to 3 meters per second wind speed, which is where the urban heat island falls apart. And again, that's the same thing that I got for Adelaide. So wind and ventilation is very important. Okay, so what have I been doing? I've been using radiometers, initially the ones on the left, which we've been making for the last 20 years or so, and also infrared cameras, which we've used a whole variety of. I'm currently using a little FLIR one that keeps falling out of my my phone, but it works pretty well. And you get images like this. So what I've been trying to do is to say, how well is evapotranspiration working? Because that requires sap to be provided by the tree, so you've got something that transpires. We've got an infrared image on the left, and the idea is to have a control temperature. Now, what I used to do is to measure the air temperature, but I wanted something that didn't require that, so the control temperature here is the temperature of branches compared to the temperature of the leaves, and you can see it's pretty tricky selecting the right branches. So a difficulty of this, which needs practice when you've looked through a lot of these things, is to find a suitable branch and suitable leaves. You need leaves that haven't been illuminated by solar direct sunlight, and we saw a paper on Monday which pointed out that at the top of the canopy you might get this effect of 6 degrees. The effect that I get is a couple of degrees. So the aim is to retrieve the temperature difference between a local object, in this case a branch, which is in sort of the same thermal area as the leaves we're trying to study, and leaves that are transpirating. So it requires careful selection. It's sort of consistent, and with a spread, typical spread of around half a degree, maybe a degree if you look at it carefully. The mean square is just over half a degree in this. Okay, so that works fine. If you look at over through a summer, what you get is that the early parts of the summer, this is the time of day, the transpiration cooling is maximum fairly late in the day, which is just what you want. Later in the summer, you find that this doesn't work nearly so well because the tree doesn't have the available moisture to work. Okay. And so as the year goes by, the time of that peak progressively gets earlier and earlier and earlier. So what you really want to do is to make sure that moisture is actually there for the tree to use. And if you have a heat wave, what you find is that the thing is dropping even at sunrise. Sunrise is going down. Yeah. Okay. So if you've got a heat wave, you get effectively nothing. We've got some problems with the technique which I'm working on. As I mentioned, it was a pilot study, and so there are things that need to be looked at. And let me just point out, as I said right at the start, we have a Mediterranean climate, dry climate. Please stop, and I've finished. Thanks.
Thank you, Roger. Do we have questions from the audience? We have time for one quick question. Scott.